So one of our previous videos we have actually done the break, and it was actually ARTBAT break or ARTBAT, I'm not sure. It was actually ARTBAT breaks. I was only focusing on the break itself, but a lot of people were actually asking me if I can make a full complete tutorial about other things, especially on the lead sound. I think it was one of the most asked part of the tutorial. So I decided to make a tutorial on the rest of the elements in the track. So if you haven't seen the break tutorial, so I will put a box over here or over there somewhere so that you can actually click on that and take a look at the previous video and get an idea of how we actually made the break. But other than that, before we start with the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell button so that you get notifications when we make a new video like this. Let's take a look. So basically we have this low end, and it's kind of quite deriving low end as well. If you take a look at first to the kick sounds like this. I just had this regular kick, but added a body on top of that so that it gets a bit more aggressive. As you can see, when I add the body, I'm taking off like low end quite a lot, and it's basically high end, and I'm distorting it a bit or overdriving it a bit with the pedal. Just give this greatness to the sound. And then we have the kick sling that I called. It's basically, if I play the kick together, you will actually hear it a bit better. Just giving this kind of a white noise feeling. It's actually made from reverse kick, and I just layered it with a pink noise. And of course the usual stuff, I just a bit EQing, cutting super lows and cutting super highs as well, so we get a bit darker sound. A slight reverb, and of course a side change of the kick so that we take it away when the kick hits, and it also gives kind of sucking effect. And finally we have the bass. It's kind of a deriving bass, and it sounds like this. As you can see, actually I'm taking off the low end simply because I have this guy over here, and on top of this I feel like it's already enough, but it depending on the thing that you're aiming for, you can definitely make it fuller like this. I'm thinking it that way simply because actually I realized the sling is not that much. So this will definitely work if we take a look all together to the low end. If you don't play this guy, of course. On the other hand, unfortunately we have the other bass as well. So basically I'm keeping this as driving bass on top, but then I'm having this chorus bass to layer on the bottom. So if I play it, as you can see, we have actually low end coming home from here. So basically all together they sound like this. It's quite full, it's quite heavy as well. It almost reminds kind of a Boris Brage low end, but this is a bit more wilder, I would say, from that. And the second thing over here is actually the lead sound, which is probably the reason that I'm making this video. A lot of people were asking about it. It has two layers. The first layer actually sounds like this. It's quite Mind Against Tale of Us vibe in it. The reason being is actually, if you take a look, I have used our preset pack, and there is a preset there. It's called the Mind Against Astral High. What I did in this case though, I did another layer. So original preset was like this. A nice high layer, but it also means that actually we can have another oscillator on the bottom end and fill that up a bit. And this one is kind of between sawtooth and a square wave, and this one is completely square wave. So this is kind of giving this kind of additional harmonics, but those harmonics are a bit on the lower end, so it feels quite nicely. If I just play the oscillator A, you will hear it a bit better. And this one is super high, and together. So basically we have this cutoff over here, like it's 12 dB, so it's not that aggressive, but on top of that we have an envelope. It's a slight attack here, and then slight decay as well, so it gives this kind of fast movement to the filter. Hence this movement causes this really nice harmonics on the cutoff, or how cutoff gives this kind of nice harmonics. It's one of my favorite preset as well in the preset pack. And then on the effect side, we have the hyper dimension to make it a bit wider, and distortion. It gives a bit like a body and grit. And then of course, as you can definitely hear, these effects are really subtle. Reverb is the most probably obvious one. Give this kind of nice ambience. And then we have a EQ just cutting off all these low end. As you remember, we have a lot of things in the low end, so we don't want to take more space. We can make it a bit more aggressive. I felt like this was enough. And then we have this effect chain, basically adding a delay, but being a bit careful with the delay simply because it's already quite wet. We did reverb. So this one is the dry sound. This one is on the other hand the wet sound. But we are sidechaining it to itself, so that when we hit the dry signal, we are ducking the wet signal quite a lot, so that it gives a little bit more clear sound. Although I still felt like this sounds a bit too clean for this kind of really driving techno, so I needed another layer on top of that, which was this. Almost kind of a acid sound. And for this one I actually use another preset from the preset pack. It's from the it's called the Hunger Music Lead. It's actually two sawtooth, and they are quite acid sounding. So if I actually take away the EQ here, it's the French LP with those resonances together with the sawtooth, gives this kind of really acid sound. And then we have like some effects on top of that. The reverb is also like a kind of gluing it to the original lead sound. And the most important thing over here is basically using this EQ to just cut off everything and just letting this high end stick. So without the high end, the original sounds like this. And with the high end, and all together, just give this kind of additional grittiness so that it cuts through the mix. So if I play everything together, you will actually hear a bit even better what it does in the mix. It gets quite dark like this, and the moment that you add this, just pushes the sound brain forward, which is quite important. I know when you just take a listen to like isolated way, it doesn't make too much sense like this even. It almost feels like the darker sounds better simply because it's darker and more techno, but once you put it into the mix, you definitely need that high end. And then we have the usual suspects like the 16 hat. We are utilizing as usual vocoder and LFO, make it a bit more like a human, moving around a little bit up and down. With verb, slight EQ. On top of that, a simple offbeat hi-hat. This one is 808, my favorite as usual. Simple is better. Together. And then the right is probably the important one over here. There was also a bit questions about that. How can you make that so it gives this kind of washy feeling? So the first thing that I will suggest, definitely, let me take off all the effects so that you can actually hear the original sound. It is basically a really wrong right, so a really long tail. So it's, while it is still here, like half loud, we are repeating it over and over again. So it's like kind of having this kind of sustained sound. If it didn't have this one, actually you can give the similar effect by utilizing a reverb, a really long reverb. It will still work. But this ride itself already is quite long. And then we are using auto pan on top of that, moving it around. And then reverb. You can barely hear that initial hit. Reverb really mushes them up and makes it like a more constant white noise almost. Once you've done that, you have to just be careful about your super lows here. You see there are things over there, basically you don't want that. And then finally the compressor. This one, depending on the taste, it could be either clap or the kick, basically. Let's try the kick. Sidechain the kick is much better, but depending on the track, there sometimes could be a really high end, for example, snare, and if it is the case, then you can actually consider sidechaining to the snare instead. This part I have already explained in my previous video, so like I mentioned, I should have already put some cards somewhere. Click that up, and these ones as well. So basically the break part, I will say. And if you play everything together, actually you can hear it a bit more clearly, and you can also hear the break here. So let's take a look. Sorry for that, I realized that I have double, so let's take this off, start again. And yeah, that was it. By the way, don't forget what the message board says over here. So we have this kind of a big discount, Friday discount in Mercurial tones. So everything is 30% off if you just use the Black Friday coupon. So the coupon is actually Mercurial Friday, I think. Yeah, it should be. I will put it also in the description below. So take a look at there. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you learned something. And I will catch you in the next one. Goodbye.